Good afternoon. I'm Jim Eskin, founder of Eskin Fundraising Training, and it's my privilege and pleasure to welcome you to our second fundraising, friendship, and fun virtual learning community broadcast. Good looks was never my strong suit. Welcome, Barbara Goldman. But I have to say I had a fell and I was checked out by doctors. It looks ugly, but nothing's wrong with me. You know, they were more concerned about the inside. I went through a CT scan and I don't have any brain to give up and I'm doing fine. So, but I sort of look, when people see me, not too many have, I go into stores or wherever, and I actually met with Cindy Sullivan last week. I say three things. One, you should see what the other guy looks like. Two, then I moved to, yo, Adrian. And then I decided to move to a more intellectual level. And I said I debated tariffs. Of course, the truth is, if I debated tariffs, I probably would look a lot worse than this. We couldn't be more delighted. Welcome, Marv Leroy. We couldn't be more delighted to this new format. You will not hear me use the W word, and the W word is webinar. We love leading hundreds of them, and they serve their purpose, but we are enthusiastically moving on from that traditional format of one topic, one speaker, prepackaged questions, to something that we think is better and our audience deserves better. And what we want to do is make it more engaging. We want to make it more free-flowing. We want to make it more conversational. And the best thing we want to do is engage the audience. So be warned, I might call on you. There are three ways that you can communicate with us. You can type something in the chat space, the Q&A box, or preferably we'd like you to come on camera. And so hopefully you're not beat up like me and we can see your face. By the way, you have two options. You can watch this with everybody on the screen at once, or you could click on the speaker only button and you'll only see one speaker at a time. We work for you all in the nonprofit sector. You inspire us. You know what I know about the nonprofit. Elena, welcome. So your backgrounds, personalities, roles, and causes might be different. You all embrace the uplifting vision of leaving the world better than was given to you. In a very real sense, to us, you are kindred spirits. We are a community of kindred spirits. And you are nothing less than modern day Don and Donna Quixotes. You're willing to defy the odds, commit to huge challenges, demonstrate chivalry, and dream impossible dreams. Now, we're very delighted to have what I call my brain trust join us, because God knows if anybody needed help in the brain, it's me. And I have 6 people from very, very different backgrounds, but they really are going to enrich the discussion by adding wisdom. First of all, I'm delighted to have a new friend from Venice, Italy. That's not Venice, California, Venice, Italy. Leonardo Zangrano is one of the world's most respected TED Talk preparation people. He's prepared more TED Talk speakers than anybody else on the planet. What's the weather like, by the way, in Venice?
I look out of my window and it's dark. It's a very dark weather.
Well, he's 7 hours later than us.
It's nighttime.
We owe you a cup of coffee and maybe even stiffer. My first question, I want to reveal your personality. You know, Sunday night was one of the 97th Oscars. If you were lucky enough to be seated at the Oscars, what would you wear?
So I would wear something very classic. That is a navy suit, but with a funny tie, something with like a pink or a Pink Panther. Actually, I used to own a Pink Panther tie, so I would use that. I would do that.
Peter
Definitely.
Sellers. I love
Yeah,
that theme
exactly.
song.
Exactly.
Next off is Christy Natalino, DPT, who really is a master in treating the whole person, body, mind, and soul. Christy, if you were demanded at the Oscars and you had to reach into your closet, what would you wear?
I'm going fancy ball gown, probably blue.
Okay. I think this question is tougher for the women than the men. Next off, Don Gleason, who is a premier executive team builder and executive coach and the president of Achieve New Heights. And currently he is in Phoenix. What's the weather like in Phoenix?
Oh, it's beautiful, 72, but cloudy today. So it was nice. We were
Well,
out in the playground with our 5-year-old and 5-year-old grandson, and it was not hot at all. So very enjoyable.
okay. First of all, have you ever been to the Oscars? You've been to a lot of places.
I have not.
Me either.
No real interest either.
I would love to go when my face clears up. Anyways, if you were invited to the Oscars and you had to reach into your closet, what would you wear?
Oh, I'd probably wear my standard black suit with light blue shirt and a fun tie. I love wearing
Okay,
fun ties.
okay, okay, okay. Let's move on. This one is going to be real tough that we're going to have. Marjorie Hope is the best-selling author of Connect Diplomacy, and she is in Boca Raton. And I think she's got a lot more clothes than the rest of us. And we're going to get to something. It's a special day. Marjorie, if you were invited to the Oscars, what would you wear?
First thing I would do is go shopping. I would look for a really beautiful pink ruffled dress, probably like a ball gown, maybe. And I would have so much fun with it. I love dressing up.
Yeah, me too. So, okay, I'll answer. I love putting on a tuxedo. And anyways, it's been a time. By the way, this is a special day, March 5th. Marjorie now is 1 year younger than me. It's her birthday. She's 39. And Randa's going to join me. She has a background in operatic singing. Happy birthday to you. Please join me. Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday to you.
Happy
Happy birthday, dear Marjorie. Happy birthday to you.
I don't sing much out of the shower.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, let's move on. Randa, who's in Austin, Texas, and she is our social justice, spreading everyone's business. Randa, you're demanded at the Oscars. Look into the closet. What would you wear?
You know, being in nonprofits for a while, I've done a lot of galas. So I would probably reach in and find the nicest gala dress I have on hand and try not to overthink it. These things make me so nervous. I always overthink and then go shopping and then can't make up my mind and hit 10 different stores. I would just be like, you know what? You have a dress. It's great. Let's do this.
Okay. Why don't we bring in the others on this? There's no Kelly. Have you been to the Oscars?
I have never been to the Oscars.
Okay, I like to think there are three big events. Number one's a presidential inauguration, and the truth is you can buy your way in there if you make a contribution, and Marjorie knows about this, say like $250,000, probably now it's more. You can get a pretty good seat. The Super Bowl, you can
$5 million.
buy your way into. The Oscars, I don't think you can buy your way into. You can buy your way into one of the parties. I don't think it's tough, to get a ticket to the Oscars. Kelly, if you had to go to the Oscars, what would you wear in your closet?
Like Marjorie, I would go shopping and I probably would do something very simple but elegant. Not sure what color, maybe a little bit brighter than normal. I usually wear a lot of grays. But just really streamlined and simple, but pretty.
I got to tell you, and I hope this is not sexist, I've been surrounded a lot of strong women in my life, my mother, my sister, my wife, and just a couple of girlfriends. And anytime we had to go to a special event, there was the same response. I have nothing to wear. I've never met a woman. I have nothing to wear. So I don't know, it was me. I've never met a woman that had something to wear. I mean, for a guy, it's a tuxedo. It's not complicated. And maybe to even go wild, instead of a black tie, you have a cummerbund and like a polka dot tie or something. It's tough for a guy to go wild. Barbara, you weren't expecting this. She's even the founding executive director of Team Ability. Have you been to the Oscars?
I have not, and I've been to the red carpet when visiting my daughter in Hollywood. That was the closest.
Oh, I love the red carpet. Okay, well, you're prepared for this. What would you wear if you got a seat inside the Oscars?
Well, I have spent a lot of time shopping in the past for balls and military events, and I always loved what I chose. So I would reach into my closet and pick one of my favorite Army wife ball gowns and walk out in that and feel as if I'm 20 years younger.
Finally, I meet a woman that says I have something to wear, and not asking for a credit card. Okay, Elena, have you been to the Oscars?
I have not, but much like Marjorie, I would look for something fabulous and pink, and it would be a great excuse to go shopping.
Okay, add to my list. I hate to be sexist. Okay, I'm going to skip the guys because, again, we don't have that many choices. But I'd like to bring in Paul Carr, has done it all in the world of PR and communications, including being a senior vice president at Baylor University and many other prestigious positions. Let's talk about, I'm going to start with you to talk about artificial intelligence, which has potential and limitations. Can you take a couple of minutes and share your perspective on artificial intelligence?
Sure. Everybody remembers when GPS first came out, we didn't need maps anymore unless the GPS took us off to a dead end and then couldn't figure out its way back out. Or it took the long way around rather than the shortcut that we knew because we lived there. So my appreciation for technology is it's a tool. It's not an answer to everything. And so with GPS, learn how to use it and then trust it when it does what I want, but frequently double check it. I feel the same way about AI. So the experience I've had so far is that it is a helpful, useful tool. It's like with marketing materials, things of that nature, it gives you a first draft. So if you don't know where to start, ChatGPT and there's lots of others out there. I was doing a little research today and there's 100 I haven't even heard of before. Those are great starting places, but they're not going to be the answer for everything you need. I still believe in human intelligence. I think that each one of us knows more about what we need to do than we might realize we do. And so with a starting place with all of my, I'll say marketing clients that I'm dealing with for kind of a first time, if I don't have any background with them, the basics essentially are who do you need to reach? Who are your audiences? Who do you need to reach and why? So you may have 5 or 6 audiences. You may have 10 audiences. So we'll take a nonprofit, you've got your clients, but you may not need to reach clients. You may have more clients than you can meet. You may have donors, but you need to expand your pool of donors. You may have volunteers, but you need to expand your pool of volunteers. So those are different audiences, and the message you're going to have to recruit a donor is different from a message to recruit a volunteer. There are some similarities, but the reason that you're trying to reach them is different. Therefore, the messaging needs to adjust to that. So who and why you're trying to reach them, and then what do you need them to do is the next step. And the final step is then what are the channels you need to use, communication channels to reach them. With social media, there's multiple channels just in social media alone.
Oh my
and
God.
It's difficult for any of us to manage more than just a handful. So the key really is to find out where are your people, and AI might help with this. Where are some what are the channels that most attract certain type of donors, or which ones are your donors? Ask your donors themselves or your volunteers now, which social media channels do you use? Which one did you used to use and you don't use anymore? Anybody still have their MySpace account, right? So, things come and go. I worked for a guy who always wanted to be at the cutting edge. He always wanted the newest thing. And I asked him, I said, well, is your audience 15-year-old teenage girls, right? It's like, well, no, it's not, but that's cutting edge. We need to have that social media channel. And I said, it's a waste of time. There's no return on investment. So picking your battles, and AI could help with that, but just from a content perspective, it can help do the first draft of content. And then as a human, I then want to adjust that to the audience I've selected.
Okay, Leonardo, let's go to Venice, Italy. Your
Yes.
business is, talking for impact. What's your perspective on artificial intelligence?
Well, I think that we've been thinking when AI will surpass human intelligence, and we are talking about the singularity, and it will happen soon, and we are super afraid of that, and so on. But I think that to really happen, this needs much longer because we have something that AI doesn't have, which is the human perspective. And we as humans, we have like billions of cells interacting in our brain, and say there is a circuit for AI for each of these cells. In spite of that, AI won't have our human experience to build on and to be able to act and interact as humans. So I think that our competitive advantage to AI is that we have an H instead of an A, so it's human intelligence, and it will be very difficult to overcome. Obviously, AI can do things that we cannot do because it's kind of a super intelligent, dumb being, and we have some out there that are humans but look like more like machines. Never mind, we are able to talk heart to heart. We are able to engage with people with their hearts, and that's the very way how people talk to each other, interact with each other, and move each other, inspire each other. And that's valid in public speaking, in when you're on stage, when you're doing a TEDx, but it's valid as well when you are raising funds. And it's very relevant in your industry. So AI, great tool, but let's not like lose our north, because we are HI and it works better for what we do.
I'm for HI. Okay, let's go to the newly minted 39-year-old who's an author, and I've heard her talk more than once about the power of AI. Marjorie, could you share your perspective on AI?
Okay, so I love AI. We
And
use
why?
glasses
Why?
to see better. We use crutches to walk better. We use hearing aids to hear better. AI is now 97% correct on the things that you ask it. I must use it 100 times a day. It doesn't mean that I copy what it says, because your thoughts have to be there first, but it gives you a better way of saying things than you might say it like if you're in a rush. And I have found it to be extremely effective. Now, the one thing it's lagging behind, but it is getting better, is on pictures. Example, on the day of the inauguration for the president in America, I had done a post on if all the past presidents in the country had come together for this inauguration. It was just a little like thing I did where I said, give me a picture of this. And it gave me a picture of like 500 people from the past history. Now, we all know we don't even have 500 past presidents. And we don't have people from this, 1300s that were in it, and Vikings and all. So I was like, oh, shoot, this isn't going to work. Now, the funny thing is I wound up getting it to use, in your first picture will usually come out the best. And if you ask it to correct it, the corrections are worse. So
You
I
know,
wound up
it's
using
funny
the
you
first
mentioned
picture.
about all the presidents. Andrea and I have a drinking game over wine. It's all, and we're not driving. Of gathering all, let me see, 2 were elected twice, so we've had a total of 45, 44 presidents. Grover Cleveland and Donald Trump have been elected twice. You know, what would we like to gather all the presidents? Go ahead, I'm sorry. That's
Well,
our
so that
drinking
was what
game.
I put it on social media, my post with that picture. And I was laughing so hard because people were actually writing in, that's not a real picture. I'm like, yeah, thank George Washington wasn't at this inauguration. You know, it was just really funny. But yeah, but honestly, it's extremely useful and helpful. And oh, one more thing, I had to do something for work where I needed every country and the president of every country in the world this week. Now, I figured it would not tell me up to date information, and I was ready for some mistakes. You know what? I double and triple checked a lot of the stuff that I didn't know. It was correct on every single one. I was shocked.
My God.
So it's actually getting
Okay,
better.
let me, a little, since it's your birthday, name them. What are the presidents of the 195?
How about this? I don't want to bore everybody, but I'll start with
I'm
George
just kidding.
Washington and
I'm
end
just
with
kidding.
Donald Trump.
I'm just kidding. Let's go to Randall Luna, who gives us a millennial perspective. What do you see on the potential limitations of artificial intelligence?
Thanks. Yeah. So I think from this perspective on this topic, I think that AI right now has a tendency to hold implicit biases that are similar to that we as humans hold based on its creators, based on the feedback it's gotten so far and the algorithm, whatever algorithms or whatever it is that's been built into that code. And so like Marjorie was saying, you don't want to copy it because your thoughts have to be there first.
Right.
I'm studying for a PhD right now in organizational leadership through the lens of social justice. And what I've discovered and I use it frequently, Marjorie, too, 100 times a day. I use it all the time to help generate
Right.
things, or here's my
Right.
raw data, raw thoughts. They aren't very refined. Help me figure out how this flows. But it does give me output sometimes, and I have to go back and say, yeah, but you wouldn't say that. Or, you know, why I'll ask it a question and it'll talk to me about presenting a situation with a woman of color or with some of those details, and I have to ask it, and why did you say that?
But it will also thank you, and it'll say, have a nice day. And but
Yes,
Jim, can
and so-
I add one thing? And I just wanted to add that you have to be careful, you guys, if you use AI, it has code words in it. The code words were put in on purpose for people to know if you are using AI. If you use AI, never ever copy it directly. And one of the main code words is foster. So be careful of that. You must change something.
You know, I think you should learn everything every day. I didn't know that. And if I
Mhm.
get invited to a cocktail party, I will show that off.
There's other
yes,
words too,
Christy,
but yeah.
Christy, what do you see as the application or potential limitations of AI in the arena of health?
So I think it is wonderful for fast research. You can get some really good data really quickly without having to comb through. Now, granted, you know, if you're really using some of this stuff, you need to back up and check sources, obviously, because there's so many levels as far as scientific evidence goes that you can get trapped into using a lot of, say, case studies, which are only 1 to 10 people and aren't as good as, say, a randomized controlled trial. But it's really good for some good, quick information. But losing that human component is huge. The emotional side of things, the connection, the ability to treat people as a whole person and not just a singular group of symptoms is, I think, going to be a downfall as far as the medical side of things goes, and across the board. Actually, if you start to lose that human component, you're going to lose your audience at some point, and they're going to disconnect, and it's going to be hard to get them back.
Let's move on to Don Gleason, who is a executive leadership coach. What's your perspective on AI?
I'm actually loving it.
Because
I'm similar to some of these people that I'm starting to use it every day. And you know I think we have just scratched the surface. I love everything everybody has said. Use it as a first draft, use it to gather research, use it to get, tone of conversations, you can use it in so many different ways. One thing I want to add to this conversation is going back and forth with it, right? Treat it like a person sitting at a desk across the way. Ask it a question. They give you information. Ask another question. Go deeper. Go deeper. You know, you can say, "Give it to me in the tone of Don Gleason." Use things he's written on his LinkedIn URL at this site, in this book that Don wrote, in these blog posts that Don wrote, and you can get them to. It'll go out and research it and come back and create a in the tone of yourself or somebody else, right? You can go back to Martin Luther King if that's what you wanted, right? I did an example before the election, and I said, "Give me for the past 6 presidents, 6 top economic indicators, what happened during each one, and what was the driver between each one." 30 seconds later, I had it. I didn't have to go out to 100 websites, right? So it has that much power. Then you can just go back and say, okay, given that research, do this, you know, with that. So you constantly go back and forth. Now, this is not a philanthropy thing, but it's my career transition coaching business. Is I help people write a targeted resume. Some people don't like it because they go in, they say, "Hey, given this in my LinkedIn profile, create me a resume bullet," and then they're done. But I've tried that, and I go back once, I go back twice, I go back 3 times. Well, add this piece for this result, add this piece for this problem, right? Add this. And after about 6, 7 times, I've got a bullet that I think is really probably pretty good. And I didn't have to, it saved me a lot of time. Let me just say it that way.
Right.
So I think they're just incredible. The thing I love about the medical piece, if I can just add one more
Yeah.
thing, I was watching at one point where they had AI looking at x-rays, and it was finding a lot more things than the human eye could find.
Yeah.
And it was very accurate 6, 8, 9 months
Yeah.
later. But we're just touching the surface at this point.
I hadn't heard that before. Before we go to missions in action, and we have some people to talk about some exciting projects. By the way, it looks like you're in a golf cart, but is that Clara there? All I see is the phone number. Okay. Are you in a golf cart or your car?
I am in my car, but I'm in the Indian Wells tennis tournament. So
Okay, well, okay, don't brag.
I am in the.
However, John Largent, let's take care of a little housekeeping. Can you share some links? First of all, he's going to put a link on the chat space if you need to sign up for our newsletter. That will also get you invitations to our virtual learning broadcasts, not webinars, virtual learning broadcasts and podcasts. Can you put that link in the chat space? We also do a podcast in which we salute unsung heroes. We've recorded about 20 of these, and you can nominate colleagues, neighbors, people you admire. And we've enjoyed, those are audio only. And can you put that in the link space? And when he's not falling down, yours truly has written 2 books. One is called 10 Simple Fundraising Lessons, and it's only 82 pages. It's a quick read. And it's a great introduction to those who are new to fundraising. And can you put up that link? And my newest book I'm very proud of is How to Score Your First or Next $1 Million Gift, because that was the question that came up most during all our virtual learning community sessions. And John, can you put up that link? Okay, let's go to missions in action. And we're going to have people describe some really inspiring nonprofits in action, okay? And I'd like to start with Clara Potis Fellow, who's Managing Director of the fundraising strategy for Altina Rising. We've all heard about the impact of the LA fires. Altina is a community, and now Clara will tell us about it, was totally devastated. Can you tell us about that project?
Yeah, absolutely. Altadena is a community of about 40,000 people. All of them were displaced by the fires.
Wow.
About 9,000 structures were destroyed. 5,000 of them were single family homes. And many of them have found temporary housing. Many others are living in their cars in front of the ashes of what was their home. So it's really, really sad. And they need help, and help that will be sustained for several months and years. So there is several movements here in Southern California. I joined a team of civic leaders that is working with the California Community Foundation to raise money to rebuild at least 150 homes. And what we are doing is trying to raise $50 million in a very short time, like 3 months. And at the heart of this initiative is a music festival and Univision national broadcast and telethon. So we will have a concert with great talent, and at the same time, the broadcast will be a telethon. So that will raise a lot of money. But before that, we are trying to reach out to major foundations and corporations, venture capital, individuals, to raise the large numbers, donations between 1 million to 5 million to $10 million.
And what's your timeline on this project?
Well, we have about 3 months to do it.
3 months to raise 50 million.
Yes.
In my world, we call that pressure.
It is pressure, but the good thing is that
pressure.
the need is always there, and we intend to get there. But if we don't, we can continue raising money, and we can continue giving money, and the community is going to take about more than 4 or 5 years to rebuild this community. So we are aware that the need is pressing, but at the same time, it's a long-term need as well.
Right. Well, first of all, thank you for your service and leadership. Let's move from one coast to another. And Joe April is in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And he is the director of development with a wonderful museum called, it's spelled funny, I have to tell you, Strawberry Bank Museum. Joe, can you tell us about this project?
Sure. And we only have one R in our strawberry. And if anybody would like, I've got 437, Marv is laughing, 437 coffee cups that we bought that have 2 R's in it and no E at the end of it. So
I wonder if artificial intelligence would figure that out.
Well, I can tell you the person at Southport Printing didn't figure it out. And we have a lot of mugs, and Marv has, I think, 30 of them. As Jim said, we're a museum on the coast of Portsmouth, and we're a nice museum. We have 30 buildings. We cover a time period from 1690 all the way to 1945. And we just completed, and Marv knows all about this, we just completed a big campaign to raise money. Our biggest challenge, and to throw out to everybody here, and Clara, you just talked about people who's lost their homes, who are living in cars. I think, Kelly, you're going to talk about saving animals. We're a nice museum that has nice education. There's not a lot. We're not saving lives. We're not curing cancer. We're not providing homes for homeless people. How do you raise $25 million in a situation where it's a very different kind of a mission? So what we did was take a look at what can history teach us about the present from the past, and looked at things that were happening today. And again, we have 30 historic homes that covered literally 400 years. So for us to get donors beyond the very, very, very small portion of donors that are actually interested in historic preservation, what were we going to do? Were we going to find $25 million for this project? So we really looked at three main things. Number one, we looked at what is these stories of the past telling us about today, and using education as a tool to bring people to the table. Things like, hey, guess what? This isn't the first crazy election in the history of the United States. As a matter of fact, look no further than Thomas Jefferson, or, boringly, Rutherford B. Hayes. So we had a lot of forums where we brought people in to have engaged conversation.
I'm not going to show off that for you. That was the
Yeah.
year 1800 and the year 1876 on the
That's right.
history freak.
Yeah, and Jim, Jim lost that election too. Did you lose it to Thomas Jefferson on the first round or no?
Thomas Jefferson, he defeated John Adams, right?
He did.
He did, but the challenge there was the vice president. It's a long story.
Yeah,
The
I
point-
think they had a duel to the end.
We did. They did. Anyways, the point is we have a nice, cute museum that does nice things, but we're not changing lives. How do you raise $25 million? So we really took our mission, turned it on its head, talked about how the past can inform the future. We also looked at things like, hey, we have a bunch of historic homes that need to be fixed. Each house usually is about $500,000 to $600,000 every 3 years. So we created programs where we have, if you have an old house in this old town and you want to learn how to fix your windows, come to a session with our preservation carpenter. And we had youngish, rich people, candidly, come that never would have come to Strawberry Bank Museum to take a tour. We also looked at things that were a little bit outside of our bailiwick, such as the sea level rise. And Marv knows all about this as well. We're right on the ocean. We're getting flooded in the basement. So we did a lot of work in trying to find funding and grants and donors that would be interested in helping us with environmental issues. And, for us, it was a game changer. And we ended up raising
And by the way,
$25.5
Joe,
million. Yeah.
we were talking, what was that quote? Those who do not learn from the mistakes of the past are
Doomed to
Doomed
repeat
to
them.
repeat it.
doomed to
Yeah.
repeat
Doomed to
them.
repeat it.
I'd like to thank you for your service and leadership. I'd like to move on to a new friend, Kelly Morton, who is the Stewardship Director with Best Friends Animal Society. Where are you today, Kelly?
I am in Jacksonville, Florida, but our headquarters are in Kanab, Utah. So
What's the weather like today in Jacksonville?
it's a bit stormy today, but the high is 78 today.
Well, that sounds pretty good to me. Before you talk about, and by the way, it's something very near and dear to me. We have 2 cats that we consider family.
Aw.
But I just read a study. My philosophy on trivia is if it's not worth knowing, I want to know it. But I found there was a survey done of pet parents. That's what they're called, parents. 93% of pet parents consider their dog, cat, or other to be a member of the family. Can you tell us about the work of Best Friends Animal Society?
Yeah, so our mission is no more homeless pets. We have the goal to end the killing of pets in shelters. And our differentiators are we have the largest companion animal sanctuary in the United States in Kanab, Utah, which is about an hour and a half from St. George, Utah, if anybody's been there, and about a 4-hour drive from Las Vegas. We take a very positive approach, which isn't often seen in animal welfare. I'm sure many of you have seen very sad animals in dire situations on television and in other advertising. Best Friends really focuses on happy endings and are often told that that is a very welcome change for folks. And we take a very collaborative approach. We have a network of animal welfare organizations that we partner with throughout the country, but more than 5,000, that we're all working towards the same goal to end the killing of pets in shelters.
Well, again, service for your leadership. Dawn, you have no fear. You're getting some help. Dawn, can you introduce your guest?
This is my 5-year-old grandson, Theodore. We're out here taking care of him. His dad's took off to New York City. So we're out here doing spring training with the Milwaukee Brewers.
Hey, Theodore, what's your favorite baseball team?
Who's your favorite baseball team?
The Brewers.
Uh-oh, you're not going to make your grandfather happy. I know that.
Yeah, they're my second team. So, hey, you got to give them a little slap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, can they hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Let's move on. We're going to go now to something we call fundraising urgent care, in which we test, and I'm getting ready. I see some fundraising experts like Marv Leroy we're going to bring into this segment. Marcy Andrade, could you please tell us, you have a question for our distinguished brain trust.
I do. You know, every once in a while you don't get an answer back. So I was just wondering, what would you do or what do you recommend you do when a major gift doesn't respond to you?
I gotta tell you, I think there should be more conferences on that subject. And so like I've done for the last 20 years, if it was a very difficult question, I turn to my colleague, Miles Roy, who's founder of the Institute of Philanthropic Excellence. What do you do for a major gift donor that won't respond to you?
Well, I think as is always the case, in all fundraising, we want to pay attention to cues. We want to listen and be thoughtful about what we're hearing or what we're in some cases not hearing. Sometimes silence is a no, unfortunately.
It's certainly not golden, is it?
No, well, silence can be fine. Well, we always talk about when you make an ask and you do a solicitation, silence is golden then because you really want the person you're talking with to respond and give you some sense of direction as to where it's going. So there are times when silence is a good thing, but if you're struggling to get a major donor to do something next in that pathway that you've set, sometimes you need to create moments. I've always said that we're thinking about them a lot more than they're thinking about us. So we have to constantly find a way to engage them. And one way to do that, and one way to get an answer to a solicitation appeal is to create a moment in time that they would think is important. We're going to be doing some recognition event. We'd love to have you there at the event. Can you make a decision in time for us to do that? Create moments and you don't have to lie. We have enough moments that we can point to, but sometimes you have to take some liberties to get them, to inspire them to get back to you. I can tell you in 40 plus years of fundraising, I've only had one person say no where it really meant no. That's thousands of people we've talked with over those years.
Can I have some of your DNA?
Yeah,
I've heard more than one say no.
People say not for that thing,
Yeah.
not at that amount, not now, not to you. And we pivot and we go to the next part of the process and we figure out how to get them to say yes to something. But if they're not giving you a chance to hear yes to something, you've got to figure out a way to get their attention. And one way to do that is to create a moment that would inspire them to want to be a part of it.
Let's get a global perspective. Leonardo, you teach people to talk for impact. What's your advice? You're working with a very important donor or person, and they just won't respond to you.
I guess what Marv suggested is spot on, because you need to make it relevant for them rather than for yourself. And of course, we think, oh, I need that money. And for them I want to put this money to good use, most likely. And so what's in it for them? And try to make them feel part of the decision to invest or donate to you, rather than it's just an ask to which they have to say yes or respond yes. So let's always put ourselves in the shoes of our audience and try to understand why whatever they are doing, why they are doing whatever they are doing or not doing, not responding. And then it might be just a case that we have to let go because we don't want to pester them or we don't want to go past a certain limit of of resistance on their side.
Randa, let's get a millennial perspective. What do you do when you can't get a major gift donor to respond? And the birthday girl's on deck, so get ready.
Well, when I can't get someone to respond, I try to use empathy and read the room a little bit.
I use whiskey.
You use what?
Whiskey.
Whiskey. I take it personally. I just think, sometimes
Wow.
people have things going on. Sometimes, and sometimes it really is like 6 months before they can really get around to handling a response. Maybe it's emotional, maybe it's a mental block, maybe they've literally just been traveling and then they got sick and then they had a life crash. Who knows? So I try to take those things into consideration, but then I also try to look at, if maybe that's not the case, then maybe this is someone who I'm not providing the right opportunities for them to make good on that philanthropic desire they have. My whole job is to match them with what we have. And occasionally you find someone who, I've had people tell me whatever I'm fundraising for, they're like, well, I really love what you do, but I want to take down my giving because I'm really passionate about this other thing that we have absolutely nothing to do with. So, and that's hard, but it happens every once in a while, as sad as I am to recognize that. So I try not to take it personally, but just try to analyze, is this something that I simply can't see, or are we not in alignment with what they want to do and what I can offer them?
Let's go. I
Right.
want to share a personal story, but I wanted to go to our birthday girl. Marjorie, what's your respect? Because you know people from all over the world. How do you get people to respond when they fail to do so?
So I think the first thing you have to do is find out where their interests lie. Like, what is it in their world that they are, where are they at? Of course, when all else fails, there's always chocolate.
I got to share a real life story. This is about 20 years ago. I put in a request for my employer, a university at the time. I hand carried over a proposal for $250,000. Back in those days at this university, that was seemed like a lot of money. Okay. And I followed up by phone, I followed up by email, I followed up by smoke screens, and nothing. And then I had a campaign committee said, Jim, you blew it. You asked for too much. And so they said, you should have only asked for half that, 125. So I hand carried over a proposal for 125. Okay. After I submitted a proposal for 250. 3 days later, I get an email from the director of contributions. Oh, Jim, sorry, I've been so busy. I couldn't get back to you. I've approved your 250. Call that my rope-a-dope strategy. The point is, you never know what's going on in the donor's world, Right. One of the first questions I always ask is, how do you like me to communicate with you? Again, is it cell phone? Is it landline? Remember them? Is it fax? Remember that? Is it email? Is it social media? Is it meeting for coffee? And you never know what's going in there in their world. So, Marcy, thank you for
I
raising that
agree.
question.
Yeah, well, I've
We
done
got
all
two
those.
more
I thought there was a
questions.
magic bullet.
There is no magic bullet. And
No, there
don't
isn't.
overlook a shot of whiskey, to get your courage up. Arturo Barengo, who is the immediate past chair of the Masters Leadership Program and accomplished para athlete in many venues. Arturo, what's your question for us?
Well, before the question, Jim, if you allow me, let me share with you something about AI and how I love it. Do I have like 30 seconds for that?
Yeah. But
Okay.
by the way, I'm going to take your question away because I want to work. I might come back to you, but I have to work in. Go ahead. I'm going to give you your time.
Yeah. So you want to start with the question then? Jim?
I'm sorry for the phone call. It's Mackenzie Scott. Okay, I'll take it. You're more important, Arturo.
So do you want the question first or the other?
No, I want your observation on AI, and I want to move to Cindy Sullivan in a moment.
So this is July 4th in 2023. It's our wedding anniversary, 31st wedding anniversary. So in the morning.
Wedding anniversary or anniversary of a nation?
Wedding, both. But more personally for me, our wedding was in Monterrey, Mexico. So July 4th at that time, it was nothing but our anniversary. Today is the anniversary of the country. But that morning I wrote on ChatGPT, please write a love poem for my wife, Janet. And I said, well, it should be in this style. Well, it wrote a beautiful poem in as I just hit enter, it started writing a nice poem. So I shared this poem in our family group chat. The family group chat is my wife, our two kids, and myself. So one of my daughters said, "Hey, why didn't you include myself and my brother?" So I went back to ChatGPT, write another poem, now include our sons and their names. Immediately, I had another poem. It was posted on the family chat, and we all had a great time, and we were laughing about, and that was ChatGPT. Of course, there are many, many things, but that was a fact that I wanted to share. Now, in terms of the question, and thank you for allowing me this, right now I'm in the process of creating the new board slate for 2025-2026 year at MLP Alumni Association. And I would like to ask, what are some of the best practices in recruiting board members for nonprofits, given the fact that
That's a great
yeah,
question. Let me turn to the wisdom in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Joe, what's your perspective? You know, you learn that in life, there are two gifts people can give, time and money. And as you get older, not that I know anything about it, you appreciate that actually time is the more valuable of the gift, because unlike money, you can never replace time. Joe, what's your advice on recruiting board members?
Great question. And I think meeting them on their terms, because our world is so technologically savvy now. The old ways of recruiting board members are different. Asking them, and to your point, Jim, asking, how do you like to be communicated? I ask, how do you like to be involved as a board member? How do you like to be engaged? Then meet them on their terms. And then second thing, the last thing for me on that, I think, is look at ages, because the way that people like me, who's older as opposed to somebody who's younger, are going to want to
Joe,
give and
correction, you're not
volunteer.
older, you're seasoned.
I'm older and seasoned, but you know, my daughter who's 27, she couldn't find a newspaper or a television station if it hit her over the head. So but she loves to be on boards, and she's a pain in the butt when she's on boards because she wants to see financial reports, strategic plans. So meet people on their terms and provide them the things that's going to engage them in a way I find is a good strategy.
I say if she reads all those things, God bless her. That's a great board member. I don't like the board members who ask for all that stuff and never look at them. If she really absorbs that information and gives you her advice and counsel on the basis of that, we need more board members like that. Cindy Sullivan is one of the 220 Association of Fundraising Presidents around the country. She's a consummate fundraising professional, and I believe she has a question.
I do. Thank you, Jim. I wanted to ask the panel, obviously federal funding priorities and processes are changing every day. So if you are with an organization that relies heavily on federal grants and that funding is now at risk, what can you do to pivot and to remain financially stable?
What a timely question. And what I do when it's a very, very challenging question, Barbara, by the way, are you in New York or Florida right now?
New York.
Okay. What's the weather like?
Warmer than it was when I left for Florida a week and a half ago. So that's
I can't
nice to
believe
come back to that.
Okay, Marv, what's your advice? A lot of, if at a minimum, a cloud of uncertainty is over government funding. What is your advice to nonprofits?
Well, I'm actually going to draw upon a conversation I had this morning with Andy Bennett, one of the great grant writers of federal funds.
What was his name?
Andy Bennett. He's actually based in Tampa.
Okay.
We use him all the time in our projects.
I thought you said Tony Bennett. Okay, Andy Bennett.
Well,
okay.
So I asked him, I said, you know, how are you feeling right now in this moment? His whole life is based on finding government money for organizations. And he was not, I mean, he was troubled by the uncertainty of the moment. And that's really the thing that's most troubling right now is we don't really know what's going to happen. We hear all kinds of things. But I am reminded in this moment, as I always am, and Joe and Randa and Clara and the rest of the Institute teammates who are on this call know that we talk about this all the time. Do not become reliant on government funds.
Could you repeat that again?
Do not become reliant on government funds. They're not a
Diversify
good
your
partner.
income streams.
Take the money wherever it's available and do wonderful things with it, but do not make it part of your operating budget.
I want to go further. I don't think you should you should lean too much on any single source of funding. The word is too flux. But as far as government granting, last year, private philanthropy contributed $557 billion. And so actually, I saw a study, remember, I'm a trivia freak, that only 31% of the nation's 1.5 million nonprofits apply for government grants, okay? Only 31%. And they tend to be the largest because any of us who've been there, government grants is much more taxing than private philanthropy grants. There are so many strings and paperworks and walls and everything. So you should be preparing to double down on private philanthropy. And something people we teach, you know, the number one complaint from a nonprofit is, I only hear from you when you're asking for money. So I think for those of you who are losing government grants, you are going to have to tune up the volume on private philanthropy. Don't ask. Start by now thanking your desk donors and tell them the impact they have achieved and basically set the stage. You're going to have to go back to them, not only to continue their gifts, but to increase their gifts. In the case for support, they believe in your mission, and probably a significant leg of the funding, if it's government grants, is going away. What you should be doing now is communicating more than you've ever been doing. Thank them and convey the results of what their investments in your nonprofit have achieved. Let me see, we got a couple of minutes left. Ed Hughes, we have not involved you. Do you have anything? Ed, what's your organization?
Well, I'm actually a fundraiser myself for many years. I was a former college president for 30 years. So
what college?
I was on both ends of it. Two community colleges,
college?
Two community colleges in Kentucky, Hazard Community College, and I was the founding president of Gateway Community College in Northern Kentucky.
Wow.
So I'm kind of.
I'm sorry I said whiskey. I should have said bourbon.
Thank you. I was going to remind you of that, and I would dress in a completely green outfit with my Philadelphia Phillies World Championship hat on to go to the what was it? The Oscars. There you go. I'm also chairman of the board of a national organization called Partners for Sacred Places. And we have found ourselves, we're at kind of a crossroads between churches, synagogues of all faith, buildings of all faith, congregations, and those who are in historic buildings. So those of you who are in historic preservation. Cool. And trying to make sure that communities understand that churches, synagogues, places of faith are assets for the community, not just for the religious congregation. So taking over that chairman's role, we are an institution that has virtually no federal funds, but we are very highly, we rely on the Lilly Foundation for a lot.
Oh,
so,
wonderful people.
Marv, I see you shaking your head.
In Indianapolis, Indiana.
In Indianapolis, right? And they have a religious historic preservation. But one of my goals for the last 5 years is to move us away from that single kind of source.
Yeah.
We have others,
right?
But the majority of that, Marv, is the Lilly Foundation. They've been very good to us, very innovative. Yeah. But you know, at some point, every organization like that changes. You know, our gifts officer has been there for many years. He's getting up in age. Someday we're going to call him and they're going to find out he's left. Now what do we do? So it goes back to how do you, Jim, how to make sure every organization, nonprofit, doesn't get in this funding mix of an individual giving the vast majority, an organization or government. So diversify, as somebody said,
Don't
is
put all
really
your eggs in
critical.
one basket, right?
You just can't. And it's the same thing. Joe worked with me at Gateway many years ago, Joe. and we had the same.
Hey, did
same
he
issue,
have hair then?
same issue, right, Joe? We had a couple of people who were really big givers, but how did we get away from just those people? By
Folks,
the way, Joe, we
we're
did.
wrapping up here. Thank
We
you,
did,
Ed,
and we
for your
raised money.
service and
So thank you
leadership.
for asking.
Thank you for your service and leadership. Let me thank the 6 members of the Brain Trust. I could have not done it without you. Let me thank members of our learning community made up of professional and volunteer nonprofit leaders. You truly inspire us. Let me talk about what we're doing next. We're going to put a short summary of this discussion on LinkedIn and Facebook. And then our producer, John Largent, who is one of the best producers in the nation. He has personally produced over 5,000 podcasts and videos. And to give you perspective, more men have walked the moon than have accomplished that. And he is going to do an editing of this show that within 24 hours that we will post on Facebook and LinkedIn. So again, from Eskin Fundraising Training and from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sharing the most precious gift of your time, of your life, your time. And we will come back on Wednesday, April 2nd, same time, 4 to 5 o'clock Central Time. And we say thank you for joining us. Thank you for your service and leadership, and be well.